news.
We're going to have a quick look at the papers this morning. Reverend Sally Hitchiner, chaplain at Brunel University, has been looking through. Good morning again.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. A quick look at the front pages before we look inside, though. And I wanted to start with the Sunday Telegraph, because they've got a lovely picture of the Queen yesterday enjoying the day at Epsom Racecourse in Surrey. They're also leading on the lobbying story that we've been talking about this morning. That's the way they put it. Row over lobbying and MPs' freebies is what they say.
Sunday Times leads on the same story, similar story. Cash for access, Lords exposed. Really kind of taking it on a bit from the revelations we heard this week. They claim Lord Cunningham amongst those who asked for a fee.
Front page of the Mail as well. They've got a story about number 10, apparently a secret love affair there, and quickly looking at the Observer as well. A&E crisis, they're talking about leading to a surge in cancelled operations. More planned operations cancelled in the first few months of this year than for any similar period in a decade, it's been revealed.
Should we have a look inside the papers? The Sun. I'll go first. So, why did this catch your eye?
Well, it was actually both sort of Google in the UK and the way that they've linked up actually that needs for Google to use some of the taxes that it should be paying to fund policing of internet pornography, particularly internet child pornography that has been so associated with the case of Rachel Jones. But actually, one of the things that I was really interested in was the need for, not just in the UK, for people like Google and multinational companies to pay sufficient tax, but actually around the world. And you know, paying not enough tax in our country is one thing, but actually not paying it in developing countries where 1 in 8 people around the world go hungry, where there's so much need for government resources in countries. And in fact, there's a rally that's happening next Saturday in Hyde Park to support the IF campaign, which is to put pressure on the G8 leaders, including David Cameron, to really try and make the multinational companies transparent on their tax in developing countries.
So you'd like the whole thing to be looked at, the whole system, rather than just here in the UK?
We can't ask for, we don't think we can ask multinationals to sort of, we can't pressurise them necessarily to change their system, but what we can pressurise them to do is be transparent about their system, to actually just publish in their annual reports how much they are paying in tax in developing countries.
An emotional return they're talking about here to the Abbey for a former choir boy who was there on the Queen's Day. What?
I know. Well,
60 years ago today.
It's funny, you know, this is a long time before I was born, but actually it's quite an emotional thing for a lot of people, I think. We relate to the Queen in quite a unique way.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest days of the 20th century, wasn't it? Well,
it really was. I mean, my mum, her parents got a TV for it, like many people in the country. It was the reason why television hit so many people so early, was because of that. And actually, I've got an interesting story. When I was at Vicar College, Vicar Factory as I call it,
Vicar School.
one of my friends wrote a mock coronation service and sent it off to Prince Charles, and he wrote back, and he said well, he thought it was very nice, but if you can understand that he wouldn't want it to happen too soon. So it was a lovely little story from him.
Wonder whether he's kept it.
Who knows?
People, yeah. Also the Observer, chiefs of Topshop and 20 leading stores told help make factories abroad better. So what's all this about?
Well, this is one of the things that's come out of the crisis, the tragedy that happened in Bangladesh, where just the situation for the people who make our clothes was seen to be so dire and so bad. And this is one of the things that is coming out, thankfully, of this. Often we end up with news stories being really big news for a day or two and then being faded off and nothing really changes. But there's real pressure now on clothes makers, including Topshop and other leading stores, to make a really big difference in how clothes are produced. And I encourage everyone to write into places to find out how.
Didn't you say some stories just kind of disappear after a while, but there is kind of some kind of follow-up, I guess?
Well, I think, you know, there's things we wear every day, so I would hope it's actually something that we care enough about who makes our clothes, whether they have decent working conditions, in order to fulfil our luxuries, really.
Interesting comments as well here from Julia Donaldson about it's about books, isn't it, for children, saying that they get a really rough deal here in the UK.
Yeah, well, this is the author of The Gruffalo, so any parents of young children...
This is a big favourite.
Know it well.
Absolutely. Well, I always think it's mostly like religious people going to church and parents of young children who are up at this time on a Sunday morning. So,
and others, I'm sure.
For anyone, exactly, but for anyone who's out there, I mean, the author of The Gruffalo is saying that actually we're not investing enough in child's literature, and maybe that's a reflection on how much we value childhood. And actually, I have to say that I've got a young young nephew and niece, Lucy and Daniel. Hello. Hello. And they are very excited about the Gruffalo. But actually, one of the things I'm most proud about in the UK for them is our history of very good children's literature. We've got people like Roald Dahl. We've got sort of the history of the Enid Blyton stuff. And actually, it's great to see it continuing and needs more investment to get children's literacy up. And people, young children, excited about reading.
There are some very good books out there, but it's just, I think the point she makes is they're not talked about, are they?
No.
So it's difficult to know which ones to read and all the rest of it, isn't it?
It is, I think, and actually in the age of the internet, there's no reason why we couldn't have more publicity about children's books and which ones are
you have
successful.
children doing reviews.
Yeah. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, well, so it is a classic, as we said. Now, final, Ibiza holiday Cameron forgot his passport.
I know.
Did he
30-mile
really forget his
cop dash
passport?
for it, so
Well,
they say.
It's what it says here. I mean, I think this is just a lovely story because, you know, he left his child in one of the petrol stations.
In a pub.
In a pub, sorry. And like he's just so human. And it's the sort of thing that, you know, we all do it. And we're all going on holiday. Lots of people are going on holiday this year, and many of us will forget our passports. So,
but not many of us have somebody to be able to drive back and get it.
I know.
It's slight difference, isn't
yes,
it, really?
exactly. Yes, it is. That's the big problem. But,
He's got a lot on his mind, I guess.
Well, maybe, yes. One or two things.
I've forgotten my passport too, but thank you very much. Lovely to see you again. Thank you. Have a nice day. It's lovely and sunny out there.
It is. Coming up in the next half hour.